Hi, this is Steve Rigolosi, and tonight on Forgotten Mysteries, I have for you A Pact with Satan. This is copyright 1960 by Dodd and Mead, and as you can see, it is their red badge mystery imprint with a jacket that very much conveys what the book is about. And I always find this color combination super effective. Black, white, and red is a really nice color combination. And I've actually read that the Coca-Cola company used these colors when they were developing their Coke Zero product because they plan to market that as a light cola to men. And that they thought men would be more interested in a can that was red and black with some white. So, Coca-Cola Company is one of the few that rules the world, so they must know what they're talking about. I think that just the title of this book alone will send some people running for the hills for the following reason. There really is talk about Satan in here and a pact with him. When I, first opened the book and started reading it, I thought it was going to be kind of a metaphor, something like, well, I had to make a deal with the devil or whatever. But no, this is really about someone who may have made a pact with Satan, a la, Dr. Faustus. So, people who are a little uncomfortable with this kind of topic may want to steer clear because the book itself is pretty much enmeshed in Catholicism and the battle between good and evil, and the idea that Satan does exist and does tempt people, and that there is evil in the world. I know there are people who would dispute that. Secular or religious doesn't really matter. But I just have to say, if you don't think evil exists in the world, I have just two words for you: Jeffrey Epstein. Okay, separate point. I'm not talking much about the book yet. So let me tell you what it is all about and a little bit first about the author. So Leonard Holton was the pseudonym of a very highly accomplished Irish writer named Leonard Wibberley. He was born in Ireland but spent most of his life in the United States and wrote in a variety of genres under a whole bunch of pseudonyms, was a newspaper man, wrote books for children and young adults, wrote mystery, biography, nonfiction, and to my surprise, was actually the author of The Mouse Who Roared, and that series of books, which is a very fun series about an imaginary country in Europe called the Duchy of Grand Fenwick. So check those books out if you get a chance, if you're looking for a sort of delightful read. But this book here features, it's one of a series, and it features Holton's series character, Father Joseph Bredder, Bredder, who manages a parish in Los Angeles that has a parochial school attached to it. And he's just a very nice man. Father Bredder is, he's sort of like the archetype that you think of when you think of the kindly priest. Very caring, not just at an external level, but he cares about people's souls and about what will happen to them in the hereafter if they have not atoned for their sins and repented. So, it's by no means a hellfire and brimstone or some, rabid cleric screaming at the top of his lungs all the time. But he is a gentleman who takes his calling very seriously. And I liked reading about him because I tend to find clerical characters interesting, whether male or female, because I think, you know, they're a part of so many people's lives, but what do we really know about their inner selves, right? They exist to serve others or to perform functions in whatever religion. But who are they as people? And so novels that feature clerical characters always kind of grab my attention, right? And Father Bredder did that for me because he's so likable, and he also has the benefit of being a former Marine. So while he is a man of God, he also can kind of get into fisticuffs and defend himself if the need be. So the way this book starts is the good father is sitting in his study, and he gets a visit from a woman who tells him that her dead husband is trying to kill her. So, of course, this raises eyebrows. But the backstory is kind of interesting. This husband and wife, Dr. Wentworth, who's a dentist, and his wife, Mrs. Wentworth, were very much in love. And they would always say to each other, well, I couldn't live without you. So they made what didn't really seem to be a blood pact, but sort of a quasi-promise that if one of them died, the other would willingly follow not long after that. And when Mrs. Wentworth's husband dies in a car accident, she thinks, well, should I kind of keep my promise and off myself, or should I make the decision to go on living? And it's a pretty easy decision, right? Because she never really thought that they were making that promise, in blood. But she comes to believe that her husband is angry with her for not following her to the grave as she had promised. And she believes he's attempting to kill her in the same way that he died, by fire. So one night she gets home and she finds that her mattress has been soaked in gasoline. She smells gasoline around the house. She has a few. Someone leaves the natural gas tap on in the kitchen, so that gas spreads throughout the house, and the house could go up like an atom bomb at any minute. And she knows that the police just won't take her seriously, so she decides, even though she's not a religious woman, to go to someone who might know something about spiritual matters or, the world beyond, because she doesn't know the first thing, and she's scared out of her wits. She does not want to die. So Father Bredder, being a kind man, decides to take her seriously and do some investigation. And this is where being a priest helps, because he knows so many people and has helped so many people. He's got kind of contacts out there on the street who owe him favors, as it were, and and he even has a friend in the police department, a Lieutenant Louis Minardi. And I can say, as a person of Italian extraction, it's always nice to see an Italian character who is not Mafia Don or some other goon. And the two of them make kind of an interesting investigative pair. They kind of investigate some things together and then go their separate ways. And eventually, the two of them come to the same conclusion as to what's going on, but through different paths. A very interesting component of the plot is that Father Bredder gets wind of a very similar situation that had happened in 18th century Italy between a count and a countess, where they had sworn a blood oath that when one died, the other would voluntarily follow, and then the man died first, and the woman chose not to honor the pact, and then lived the rest of her life in fear that she would be burned to death, and in fact was. So this gets Bredder corresponding with a priest in Italy, in the tiny town where this happened, and of course they write in Latin to each other, which I got a huge kick out of that. And so there's sort of an interesting historical precedent, and it's what makes Father Bredder think that maybe there is something supernatural going on here, that there has been a pact made by at least a few of these people with Satan. And I know some of you are thinking, well, this sounds really far-fetched. But what I can do is give you I think a really good analogy from our modern viewing world. Have you ever seen the Netflix series Evil? It's a really great show with a stellar cast that explores kind of the boundaries and the overlaps, or the Venn diagram, between the secular world and the religious world, the world of the good, the world of the evil, whether things that appear to be supernatural occurrences really are, or whether they're hoaxes, which many of them turn out to be. But the TV show explores a lot of interesting questions related to religion, belief, spirituality, and that's what this book does too. So if all of that appeals to you, I would say it's something that you might enjoy. It's certainly, that Gothic element in there is certainly very strong. But there are going to be some people watching this review who think that is just not my cup of tea. I don't buy any of that. In which case, I would not recommend the book for you, because I just don't think that you would like it. This book is, the writing to me was a little bit curious and a little bit hard to define. On the one hand, the writing feels unsophisticated. It feels almost like a book written for people who are just barely adults, right? It doesn't have sophisticated vocabulary or really any marks of what we would think of as sophistication in writing. But what it does have is this sort of naive sweetness to it that is palpable. And in fact, in a lot of ways, Father Bredder reminds me of one of my favorite fictional characters, Alexander McCall Smith's Mara Motsway, who operates in sort of the same way as Father Bredder, by trying to get to know people and listening to her heart, and looking for the good in people, and trying to understand people and their contexts, and she's always sort of looking on the bright side, which Father Bredder tries to do, but he finds challenging in this book because he's worried that Satan is involved. So that's a little. I think your opinion on that could go either way. You'd have to read. Read it to see what you really think. Overall, I like the book. I thought it got a little heavy on the satanic aspect, which is ironic because I wrote a book, The Haunting of Kanawha House, in which Satan worship takes place. So maybe I'm being a hypocrite here. I thought maybe the author hit a little too hard on that over and over again, especially in the second half of the book. But it does make for an intriguing read, especially for people who like TV shows like Evil. So that is what I've got for you. I've got A Pact with Satan by Leonard Holton. I won't tell you what happens to Mrs. Wentworth or how everything gets resolved. I kind of saw what was coming pretty early in the book, because the author uses a trick that I've seen used maybe half a dozen times. And so now when I see it, I automatically know to be suspicious. But that's just me based on my own reading experience. So I want to end this video by doing something a little different, and that is I just got home from vacation, and who would ever go on vacation in any location that did not have multiple fabulous used bookstores? So I picked up some really neat stuff, and I wanted to share it with you here and maybe get some opinions on what you might like me to read and review next. I'll admit I feel a little funny about this because I know there are videos out there on YouTube Shorts or whatever where people go shopping and then show all of their purchases, like all their name brand shit, and like things that people wouldn't care about. It seems so acquisitive and, I don't know, yucky. It just feels slimy to me. But this is a channel for book lovers, and I'm showing books, and I'm not really bragging about them, although I'm happy to have gotten my hot little hands on them, and I can't wait to read any of them. So I'm just going to show them to you, and if you have any suggestions for what you would like me to read next, or have any information you'd like to share about any of them, please feel free to leave a comment below. And if you're not interested, you could just hit stop now, because the rest of the video, maybe a couple minutes, will be about these new books. So I'm going to show them to you in order of publication date from the most recent to the oldest. The first one is this one here, The Make-Believe Man by Elizabeth Fenwick, copyright 1963. For me, the main attraction here is that it is a Harper novel of suspense. And I love that imprint and have found a lot of great writers through it. The name Elizabeth Fenwick sounds slightly familiar to me, but I don't know a lot about her. So I'd be going into this book as a tabula rasa. The next one, copyright 1950, is this one here, The Braiding Collection by Patricia Wentworth, who was fabulously successful and published widely and has a lot of many devotees. I've never read her. I've always had the impression that they were more women's books, but that never stops me. So this would be my first Patricia Wentworth. The next one, copyright 1941, is Mabel Seeley and The Chuckling Fingers. Kind of an interesting image there, right? Where the mountains or the landscape is looking like fingers or whatever. I'll admit this one really, really grabs me because I've heard nothing but great things about Mabel Seeley, and I have never read her. She's supposed to be, beyond competent, bordering on brilliance. So this one I'm really looking forward to. The next one, copyright 1938, is by Phoebe Atwood Taylor, and it's called The Amulet of Guilt, and it features her series character, A.C. Mayo. Again, have heard of Phoebe Atwood Taylor many, many times, but I've never read anything. And so when I saw this in the bookstore, I said, now's your time, Steve. Pick it up, because I think it was like $3. Yeah, $3. Now let's go even further back. Let's go to 1932 with Francis Isles and Before the Fact. Not the greatest cover. This is a reprint in a series edited by Otto Penzler. I've heard nothing but excellent things about Francis Isles, and I've never read him. Kind of a big book, a thick book, so it'll be an undertaking. But I'm really looking forward to this one too. And I suspect, just from everything I've heard, that I will really like it. And the last one, we're going way back to the early days of the Crime Club, 1931, and it's The Sound of Footsteps by Leslie Ford. And interestingly, this is from the days before book jackets. So, many of us book lovers love our book jackets, but there was a time when they didn't have them. And in fact, here's an interesting bit of information you may not know, that when book jackets were first used, many considered them to be kind of a cheap sleazy marketing ploy. So they'd buy the book in the bookstore, and when they got home, they would take off the dust jacket and throw it out. I mean, no book lover, today would ever think of doing such a thing. But that makes some of the old mysteries, some of the early books published with jackets that still have their jackets, enormously valuable, because the jackets were not printed on the best paper. They easily disintegrated. People found them to be useless window dressing, and they just got rid of them. Oh, how times have changed. So that's what I have for you tonight. I think this video has been a little bit long, but that's okay, because you may not have made it to this point. I hope you enjoyed it, or what bit of it you listened to, and I will be back next time. And like I said, if you've got recommendations for what I should read next, please tell me below. Okay, thanks a lot.